With that question, how is the accuser holding up today?
You know, I think he's holding up fairly well in the sense that he's sticking to his story, but Tom Mesereau is certainly painting a different picture of this accuser than we saw last week, really getting into all of this kid's disciplinary problems before he even went to Neverland. Apparently, in the accuser on the stand, almost every teacher he had at his middle school complained about him, that he was disruptive, argumentative, that he had to be sent out of class, that he called the other kids names, that he fought with the teachers, he had detention. I mean, the list just went on and on and on.
Witness that apparently has some problems for this accuser.
Well, that's right. Apparently, the district attorney met with a former teacher. Actually, as it turns out, I think it's a former dean of the school where the accuser went. And sure enough, the accuser was asked about this by Tom Mesereau today on cross-examination. Apparently, what happened is Dean Alpert, is his name, Dean Jeffrey Alpert, met with the accuser sometime in the spring of 2003, but we don't know. It didn't come out today when exactly he supposedly met with him. And this teacher, asked the accuser point blank, did Michael Jackson touch you inappropriately? And the accuser apparently said no. I think this teacher, Mr. Alpert, will say that he asked him twice, and that twice the accuser denied that he had ever been inappropriately touched by Michael Jackson. Well, Tom Mesereau asked the accuser about that today and said, did you in fact talk to Dean Alpert? And the accuser said, yes, I did. And he said, did you tell him that nothing inappropriate happened? And the accuser said, yes, I did tell him that.
Wow. Paul D'Amelia, you're a former prosecutor. Are you worried about this if you're trying this case as having a severe credibility impact on your victim?
Well, you always big, and this is important information for the defense, Kimberly. I look at this and I look at, you get a sense of a trial. Where's it going? Where's the momentum? How's everything stacking up? And for the prosecution, I mean, this accuser has to convince those 12 jurors that he's telling the truth now. Absolutely. But if he said this then, said something else another time, why should we believe him now? How do you address that to the jury? Why should this jury believe this accuser?
Well, this is potentially a bombshell for the defense. There is no doubt about it, because this kid is saying, no, I didn't tell the truth before, believe me now. But, Vinny,
the accuser and said, you're not listening to the question, you need to listen to the question. He's sort of giving it right back to Mesereau, and I think some people think he's starting to look like a punk. On the other hand, other people feel like he's holding up extremely well because he's answering questions honestly. These are tough issues, but he's not doing things that his brother seemed to do on the stand, which was, say, oh, I never had a conversation with that, or tell things that just weren't credible.
But that is just totally implausible, that his grandmother and Michael Jackson would make the exact same statement.
Yeah, it's just
not likely.
It's really disturbing. Listen, that seems to me conduct inconsistent with a grandmother. I thought grandmothers make Toll House cookies and read you a bedtime story. Not anything like that, Vinny.
I have to agree with you. I'm smiling because it's a little embarrassing to talk about this type of subject matter, but that's what this case is all about. And it's about, credibility and believing this boy. Now, the bottom line is, when these facts come out in front of this jury, I think it's the beginning of the unraveling of this accuser's story. And the problem is when a moment like that happens, it's something the jury's going to remember. They're going to be reminded, absolutely, by Thomas Mesereau during closing arguments, but I don't even think they need to be reminded. Something like that is something that can resonate with the jury and say, you know what? Was he coached? Was he confused? Right. What exactly happened? I have to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that this accuser is telling me the truth and nothing but the truth. And when you have a statement like that, it becomes a big problem.
Yeah, and I want to ask Savannah Guthrie, when did this information come to light about the grandmother? I mean, it just seems so unbelievable. I think this is a big problem.
Apparently, this was contained in a report that was done by one of the sheriff's investigators. So this would have been one of the early interviews in the summer of 2003. They did a couple of interviews with sheriff's officers. One was July 7th, 03, and then there was one a little bit after that. So it comes from the notes of that meeting. And obviously it rang a bell, because who could forget what he said about Jackson on direct, that it was Jackson who said all of this about what happens if you don't masturbate.
Exactly.
And now to have it coming out of the lips of the grandma, as you say, Kimberly, that's not what most people associate with their grandmothers.
Well, I got to ask you, is Grandma coming to court? Because that could be really quite something inside that Santa Maria courthouse.
Well, she testified at the grand jury, and she's on the witness list, so yes, we may see her as a witness in this case.
Stay tuned for that video. So now we're supposed to believe him, and then look at Grandma. I mean, the whole thing just sounds like a sordid mess, and that's the problem. Savannah, anything you think we can expect coming up? When do you think the mother will be on the stand?
That is the question. You know, I really don't know. I haven't heard that she's anytime soon, and I think the prosecutors are probably strategizing among themselves about when it's best to put her on, because everybody knows. I mean, they acknowledged in opening statements that this woman has some problems. She'll have some weaknesses in her testimony. So I think it's a real strategy call about when they put her on. They don't want to put her on too much towards the end, because they don't want to leave that impression with the jurors that the jurors don't like her. But they can't hide her. They can't not call her, and then the defense calls her and says, look what the prosecution was trying to hide from you. So
right.
I don't think that decision's necessarily been made yet, or at least I haven't been told, but it doesn't mean it hasn't been made.
You know, as I listen to all this testimony, Edgar De Leon, and I hear the way this cross-examination seems to be going, it raises the question, do you need Michael Jackson to even testify in this case if Thomas Mesereau is able to pick apart the story as much as he can?
Michael Jackson headed straight into court today. This is from earlier today. Minus his pajama bottoms and his house shoes. He's back, styling and profiling. Let's see. We got the armband. We've got the crest. We have the watch fob, I believe. We got the parents, the entourage, the sunglasses, the umbrella holder. Okay, we're ready for court. Go ahead, go in. You're ready. Let's go straight out to the courthouse. Standing by, Court TV's Diane Diamond.
No, the boy has already admitted that he said some exaggerating things about Michael Jackson, some downright lies, because, quote, Dieter told us to. That's Dieter Wiesner, one of the unindicted co-conspirators. I'm not sure that Tom Mesereau is really playing this tape to catch the boy in each individual lie. He's already admitted that. I think what he's playing it for repeatedly is so that the jury can get a good look at his mother.
They've got more holes than the Swiss cheese family Robinson. And, you know, you are looking at someone who has contradicted himself, who admits he had bad memory after chemotherapy. He has been put on the spot a number of
point, because he really was a bad problem. But the big thing that he got out today was that this young boy in the spring of 2003 spoke to this Dean Alpert. He'd had so many disciplinary problems, and the dean apparently said during a weekend deposition that I looked the boy in the eye and I said, look at me, and I can't help you if you don't talk to me. Has something bad happened to you? And the young boy said, no, nothing has happened. Well, this is just a couple months or weeks after this molestation is said to have occurred that came up. Do you want to go into that now? Or
sure, go. Yeah, go.
Okay, in the opening statement, so we looked it up. Grace Wong, our producer back in the truck, has looked it up. The opening statement, Tom Mesereau says, the mother and the boy called comedian Jay Leno and tried to get money from Mr. Leno. Mr. Leno has told Santa Barbara police something was wrong. This is a quote from Leno. Something was wrong. They were looking for a mark. It sounded scripted. The mother was in the background and I terminated the conversation. He then mentions it again in another part of the opening statement. It was the boy calling, not Janet, but he said, Leno said, I could hear the mother in the background and the way he was approaching me saying, I love you. I watch you late at night. Suggested to Mr. Leno that something was wrong. He told police they were looking for a mark. Well, on the stand today, this boy said, no, I've never talked to Jay. I'll tell you, if Tom Mesereau goes true to his opening statement here, this young boy's got a real problem. He has lied on the stand. However, maybe he's not lying.
Are you hurting right now, Michael? Are you hurting right now, Michael?
Everybody knows the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with